Hi guys! So I told you that I would be posting a solution to this question. This was the last question from yesterday's practice work out of the textbook. I don't think it was necessarily really hard, but it did involve reading a graph, so I thought that this would be a good one to look at because it kind of crosses over our strands. It's, a little bit of number sense and a little bit of data management. So I'm going to walk you through how I would do this. I'm after all of you guys to show your work, so I'm going to model how I would answer this question for full marks on a test or full marks on a quiz, or basically what's going to keep your teachers all happy in the future because they're going to see exactly where your brain was going when you got the answer. So starting off, I'm going to read the question. I don't know if you guys recall me talking to you about the 4 steps of problem solving, where first we read it, then we plan it, then we do it, and finally we explain our thoughts. So starting off by reading it, I'm going to make sure that I really understand what's going on here. This graph shows how far a hurricane travels in 4 hours. So in my mind, I'm thinking I know that this graph is showing me a rate. I can see on the graph here that on the bottom I have measured my time in hours. So I've got 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then along the y-axis here I've got my distance traveled in kilometers, how far, and this is a linear graph. This is a continuous line graph because you can see that the graph is growing by the same amount every time. So we're going up by 200 for every hour, and right away you can already probably see the answer, but if I was going to now move on to, so reading it, I definitely understand what the question's asking me. Now I want to go on to planning it. So what am I going to have to do to answer this question? Well, in my plan, I might be thinking to myself, well, first I have to look at the graph and notice how far the train is traveling every single hour. Some of you might just look straight at it and go, okay, well, here, per hour, I keep saying train, but it's a hurricane. This hurricane traveled 200 kilometers, and you can see that, add 1 more hour, we add 200 more kilometers, add 1 more hour, we add 200 more kilometers. So right away in seeing that, I've made my plan. I can use this graph to see how far this hurricane is traveling every hour. Now, the doing the work is where I'm always after you guys to show me your thinking. So you might just choose to say, by looking at this graph, I can see the hurricane travels 200 kilometers per hour. Something you could also do to really demonstrate your understanding of the knowledge, and this would go into the do it and the explain it, right? Because now you're going to prove to me how you know, is you could show me your understanding of equivalent ratios. So you might take a look at this graph and say, I know this because, within 4 hours, the hurricane traveled 800 kilometers. So, this could be my proof. I could say, to explain my thinking, 800 kilometers to 4 hours. And you can also write this as, 800 kilometers over 4 hours. Now, we wanted the per hour, so using your knowledge of equivalent ratios, you might notice that you can reduce these numbers by dividing 4 by 4, dividing 800 by 4, and of course that's going to get you your 200 over 1. That was 200 kilometers over 1 hour, and because we're talking about a rate, and we have 200 over 1, we can turn that into 200 kilometers per hour. So at that point, you just make sure that you answer your question with a therefore sentence. Anytime we ask a question in words, you should answer the question in words. So it's a good habit to get into. But this is how I would go about solving this question.